Hello, hello. How are y'all doing out here in these YouTube streets? So, my name is Kenya Peoples Holly. This is my first video, my first YouTube channel. So I'm excited, but I am a little uncertain about these social media streets because I ain't out here like that. So, y'all be nice, take y'all time, and allow me to grow because right now, that's what I'm trying to do. So, again, who am I? Matter of fact, this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to answer the who, what, when, why, and how. So, who am I? My name is Kenya Peoples Holly. I am a mom. I am a wife. I am a doggy mom. Um, I be writing down stuff. Yeah, I'm an author, which is, we'll talk about my book later, and you can see that in the background. So, that's just my little backdrop. And I am definitely a woman of God who has been an affirmed seer, prophet, not just talking. So I ain't not in here in these streets just calling myself something else that I haven't been affirmed by. So I just wanted to come down here to explain the thing that God sent me here for. So I told you, who am I? What am I? What is this about? I just wanted to be able to share the things that God has done for me, the places He's healed me in, and as a trauma coach, to help some women just get to the next step, or some people, not just women, get to the next step. So, why do I do this? Number one, I love it. I love helping people heal in the places where I was extremely wounded. And it actually does my heart joy. And I love God as well. I love my relationship with God. And when I say God, I mean Jesus, just so there's no confusion as to who I serve. Um, the where is not necessarily where I'm coming from. I will drop my information under this video in the YouTube information so that you can learn a little bit more about me, where I come from, because all of that is actually on my website. Um, you will find that I'm very honest. Some people call me brutally honest, but I don't think there's such a thing. Um, I'll get to the how. So I'll begin with the how, or sorry, get to the how. So how I got here is, so a while back, no, 3 years ago, God had told me, go to YouTube, tell your story. Go to YouTube, tell your story. And I'm like, God, in 2019, I wrote a book that was my story. I don't understand why you're saying now, go tell your story. So fast forward over the years, I've always had people, different people affirm to me, come to me. God said you need to go to YouTube. And this would be random stuff. I mean, like, I have some friends that are prophets. One of my friends, Kanita, had come to me and she was just, God showed me this. You know, you're supposed to be on YouTube. My massage therapist, Melissa. And she was just like, God showed me a vision. You're supposed to be on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. But just like everybody else who God tells most of the time to go to YouTube or whatever, we probably end up on Facebook, Instagram, or just not doing anything at all, which is what I ultimately end up doing. So this is honestly something I've been wanting to do, but today, honestly, it's just my attempt at being, not attempt, my completion at being obedient, because this is something that God told me to do. So to just kind of give you what to expect on this channel. So the way I want to set this up is, of course, I want to always talk about the three things that are important to me. And so I'll probably do the videos with different headings. The first one would be God. And with that meaning, growing up, my grandfather was a Bible, well, both my grandfathers were pastors, but my grandfather on my dad's side, he was like a Bible scholar. He had a degree in theology, divinity. He had a whole bunch of stuff, and he always taught me the Bible. But when he would tell me like how to teach the Bible, he would always say, keep things simple or whatever. So I came up with what I call trap Bible study, which is teach, reach, apply, and preach. And it's just a way to where instead of we go to the Bible and we kind of explore characters. I started with David, and I'll end up uploading that video later because I have a lot of stuff that I actually got to put on here. This is just the first video that I was supposed to do. So again, just being obedient. So I started out, but I started with David. And then what we do is, instead of trying to eat all of these scriptures, understand all of the stuff what these old men were saying back then, we explore their life personal life individually, and we dig from childhood to their death, and then we find them by their story, and then find the scriptures in the Bible that um, connect to their stories. And that way we're kind of learning about a real person and how David had issues and challenges and problems with his dad, problems with his siblings. So it's just a different way. So I will be bringing Trap Bible Study to this platform as well. That's one of the things that I'm going to do, because the three major forces of my life is God, my marriage, and then like my family. And so we'll the next one I'll do segments as well on love and marriage. And once we start to do that, I'll introduce more of my candle business, because my candles are catered to kingdom couples, which is another God idea that he had given me to, when it comes to love and marriage or whatever. So that'll be something we'll have. So we'll have the Trap Bible Study that'll fall up under more of the, you know, God title, Love and Marriage. We'll talk about different challenges in marriage, and mostly sex, because I feel like the church has made sex kind of dirty. And it's like marriages, the divorce rate in the church is just as high as outside of the church. And I think it's just more because we are either afraid, don't talk about sex, don't talk about different challenges that make us have issues with sex, or just period. So we will definitely be getting from that. When we would keep it biblical, but we also gonna go to these streets, because again, it's not, that one probably gonna be a little raunchy. So I'm gonna be honest. I am a very righteous person, but I can also be ratchet. But I still know how to keep things in fun, and I feel like you can still have them all. And then the last thing, like I said, is going to be more so of me and my healing, and chapters from my book, and just different ways to help other people how I came out of different traumas. And so I'm like, okay, God, you said go to the internet, tell my story or whatever. Why am I really here? And so when he said, now that I've kind of introduced and gave you a general idea, I have some more stuff on my page, but I'm really just trying to be obedient and get through this particular thing. So when I was just like, okay, God, like you said go, and you said start telling my story, and it's in the book. And so why do I have to say it out loud? And so what he was, I said, so what do I say? And I honestly haven't done this for about 10 days, because I was literally like, okay, Lord, go to the internet and say what? What do I say? And he was just like, share your story. When I tell you, I got some more words. Prophet Isaac, I logged onto a Facebook post just randomly, and he called out my whole government name, only to say this same stuff again. So my kid's godmother, she had called me and said it to me a couple days ago. My daughter flew back in from Florida and didn't know about any of these conversations. We were literally talking, and she was just like, Mom, your words are powerful. People need to know how much you really pray in the background for people, and how you really do press in to God for real. But you still know how to have fun, laugh, and kick it. And I was just like, okay. So I was like, okay, fine. Like, okay, God, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. Because everybody's in my ear, which I was fine with. And then I was just like, okay, so where do I start? Now, mind you, I got a book with about 22 chapters that has different things, but I was just like, where do I start? And he said, how about you start with just what you received in your inbox this week? So I went back to my inbox, of course, and different people reach out to me. I don't call names when it comes to stuff like that, because I know a lot of different people. And most important, I know pastors, and just people that I'm gonna be like a vault, meaning, and I've always asked God to make me a vault. Like, I never wanted to be that person when someone came and really was hurting, confiding in me, that they had to worry about, it ever going somewhere. I always wanted to be what they call a safe space. So I consider myself that. And so that's why I don't want to say, any names or anything. So when I went through, and I had several messages, and they were actually all about mother wounds from different perspectives, whether people felt like their moms was narcissistic, they felt like their moms didn't love them. Some of them were abused by their moms physically and sexually, which we will also get into all of that. And so I was just like, okay, well, this is pretty simple. And, and he said, to start there. So here we are. And that's what I'm doing. Oh, and one of the other things too, I think I left out that I also will be doing, and it'll be in like short intervals. It's 2-minute prayers that I'm going to also start doing in the morning, because that's another thing that I have a lot of people reach out to me, just like, can you just pray for me or whatever? And I'm just like, hey, that's simple. We can do that together. And so I also want to offer that, and we'll do that as well. So getting to the topic tonight, it's mother wounds, the journey to healing. And I'm going to call this Mother Wounds, the Journey to Healing Part 1, only because I don't know if by the time I get through with this video, if I'll be finished, because I don't want to make the video too long. But I wrote down some things just based on things that I deal with my coaching clients, questions that they have, and different situations that they've gone through. And I'll explain one of those situations tonight, again, without using that person's name, but I talked to them already just to make sure they were okay, because even though you guys don't know their name, they do have other family members that know the situation, and we got to change the names to protect the guilty. How about that? So going back to what I was saying, so who am I? So where's my book? I want to grab it really quick. So in 2019, I wrote this book. God told me to call it Uncovered. And what it is so my book is about, I come from a well-known family in a small town, not really small. And they're a very well-known religious family, which everybody known them for. And when I wrote my book, I exposed incest and molestation that had been going on in our very picturesque, really great looking from the outside type family. And so when I wrote my book, I exposed the molestation, I exposed the incest, and then I talked about my mother wounds. So when I wrote and then after I wrote my book, because it was shameful and embarrassing to the family, everybody in my family pretty much cut me off. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. I did have some cousins that were there in the background, and they were always supportive, but I'm talking about my mother, my grandmother, the people that had collectively raised me. And the funny thing is, God had already told me before, when I got ready to write the book. So let me go back a little bit. So when I wrote the book, I took 6 months off. My husband allowed me to take 6 months off because it was I cried a lot, and I fasted that whole 6 months. I lost a lot of weight in the process, but because I wanted to really, really get everything out and just really pour myself, into the book. And so once I did that, like I said, everybody cut me off, and I thank God that I did have a husband and my daughter at that time, because even though half of the family that cut me off had been molested by some of the same people, they felt maybe embarrassed to tell their story, or they felt like I was telling their story. And again, when I wrote my book, I didn't put anybody's names in it, and I only talked about myself. But of course, it was my family, and so that was my story to tell. And so with that, I went through a state of depression, because my family is very big, and we always did things together. And then all of a sudden, here I was, where I was totally cut off. I didn't really have any family members, and anybody who had things. At this time, I had family members going to social media, calling me a liar, saying all kind of things, again, because it was bringing, shame on the family. And so I went through a state of depression. And I remember after going through that state of depression, I was like, God, like, you made writing this book exciting. So why did it happen like that? Because I was like, okay, well, how you gonna tell me to blow the roof off everything, or blow the cover, uncover it, which was gave me the name and everything, but then you didn't tell me that I was gonna go through this process of people hating me, not talking to me, whatever. And so one of the things God said to me at that time, he said, I'm gonna give you an experience so that you understand a group of my uh, my children that have been thrown away. And I'm like, okay, God, what do you mean? So he was just like, the LGBT community. So I'm like, okay, God, I'm not making the connection. So help me understand the connection. So he said, basically, this experience you're going through is going to feel the same way like when they come out. Meaning everybody disowns you, act like they don't like it. When I tell you, it was such, I was just like, if this what it feels when someone tells their family that they are coming out, all I can say is it's very depressing. And I would honestly say I could understand how somebody could even become suicidal in a situation like that, because it's just like everything that you knew, everything that you was used to, all of a sudden just decide to pull back from you and literally act like you never existed. And it is the loneliest feeling, in the world. Like I said, I thank God I did have my husband, but he said, I needed you to understand in this what that feels like when you are rejected and abandoned, by, your parents or whatever the case may be. And so I said all of that to say this, to, in a sense, help someone. So when I went through at the time, because my mom was 14, so of course she couldn't raise me. She had been in an accident when she was a child and had been in a coma, so they wasn't really sure everything that really had come, back for her, as far as kind of like saying like there was going to be some mental challenges because of the coma and different things. And so I ended up being raised by, my grandparents. And so what people don't understand, and again, I'm not saying, I don't want to get here and say I didn't have a good life, because I had a lot of things, especially material things, which is what most people would look at, what we had, what I was driving, all that kind of stuff. But what they didn't understand is because I was removed from my mom and my dad, which they were teenage parents, is that, which what most of us experience is rejection and abandonment. And so when I was talking to coaching one of my clients and we was having this conversation, and they said to me, I don't understand how my mother wounds are still guiding, my life. And I'm just like, okay, and then they began to explain like some things that happened, that they were raised by a narcissistic mom who pretty much rejected them. And so I began to show them some patterns in their life of how that same thing was showing up as a result of what they did. And even with myself. So a lot of people told me that I really didn't have a reason to feel like I didn't have my mom, because they was like, well, you was raised good and you had this stuff and you had these things. But what I experienced was a feeling of abandonment and rejection, because you got to remember, I had 3 other siblings that was with my mom. And so in my mind, I didn't understand why they was over there and I wasn't. And as a kid, you don't think about that. All you know is I'm different. I'm over here, in a sense, by myself, because my siblings are over there. Meanwhile, growing up, I learned that they felt like they had some issues with me as well, because they felt like, okay, well, at least you had things, and you didn't have to worry about what you was going to eat. You didn't have to worry about those type of things. And I'm just like, everybody's perspective is theirs to be respected. But growing up, that was hard for me, not having my siblings, not having my mom, not having my dad, and then being raised with my grandfather and his wife and her family, which, again, I'm not saying that experience was horrible, but just going through as far as the wounds go. So now here I was growing up and always feeling rejected, because I would get to visit my mom on the weekends. Like, imagine like you see your mom on the weekend, so you're looking forward to the weekend coming so that you can just be with the person who gave birth to you. And so um so let me just say this, which is why I'm starting these videos with the journey too, because where we are now, we're actually literally celebrating Christmas together. So, but I didn't want to start there, because I really want to take y'all through the journey of how we got got there because it took years, it took work, and it took both of us cooperating, not just her doing her part or me doing my part. It took both of us sitting down and being willing. And that's where I kind of want to start, because I think that for the average person, people don't understand that there are mothers out there who do not like their daughters, don't like their kids. And it's for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's you look like your dad. I didn't like your dad. Um, and a lot of times it's jealousy. And so what I realize is a lot of people, a lot of women out there, which is who I'm talking to, and I've been there, the hardest, the reason why initially it's kind of hard to get over things is because you have that guilt and shame that you got to get past from. Because I mean, let's be honest, who wants to admit, say out loud, or even think that my mom don't like me, or my mom doesn't want to take care of me, or my mom treats me like she's jealous of me. But what I want to say to most, the women, like, you know what you've been feeling, and so you know when that person has something against you. It's just hard. And then it's a lot of times when you've had a toxic mother, it's hard to explain because you don't really have a real reference for why you're doing that. And so all you know is like, this lady don't like me. I don't know why she don't like me. I don't know what the case may be. Or you have people who parent out of fear. And again, when we talk about how the things that our wounds still show up in our life, is one of the things when you're parented uh, out of fear, you end up parenting your kids out of fear, and you're doing the same thing. So I remember, being molested, being abandoned, being rejected. When I finally had my daughter, number one, that's when I think my relationship with my mom got a little bit worse. And I say that because now, having a child, I understood what was supposed to be felt. And I was just like, ooh, I didn't get this, or I never received this. And so for a lot of you, your mother wounds actually got a little bit worse once you had kids, and you didn't realize that, because now you had a comparison. Not necessarily you were comparing yourself to your mom, but then you started to see things from a different perspective as a mother. And then you now knew that she didn't give me nearly what I was trying to do. But let me tell you the mistake that I made. So, which I'm sure some of you are making, which is why I'm probably here. The mistake I made in her doing that, though, is I spent a lot of years parenting wrong, meaning I was parenting her, my child, with the energy of, I don't want to be like her, or I'm never going to be like her. I'm going to be the opposite of her. And what you don't realize is that's still anger, that's still venom that's on the inside of you. And so even though you may be raising your child, right, that the energy behind it, it'll make you exhausted, because you're not parenting from a place of, okay, let me just develop my own things, my own ways with my child. That energy that you're taking to prove to her that you was right, and you're going to show her, you're going to be a better parent, you're going to show her what she should have done. All of that energy, it's just like in there building up. And you'll find yourself going in highs and lows of depression of being parented. And then when you can't do something for your child, or something comes up, then you feel even worse, because you're not thinking about, okay, we're just in a situation or a bind here. You're thinking about, now I'm a failure like her. And then you find yourself going up and down, in the states of depression. Also, and this is what I'll say, and I can only say this because through coaching other people, but some people ask me, was it better for your mom to be in the church or out of the church? And I'm just like, it just depends on the situation, because me personally, growing up and seeing things, I think that Christian church women can be extremely manipulative when it comes to their children. And I've witnessed a lot of things as well, not necessarily with my mom in that situation, but through godmothers, spiritual moms, or whatever, to where I've been the victim of people using prophecy to convince you to do things inappropriate things, whatever. And so people act like that's not real. It doesn't happen in the church, and it does. Like I said, I grew up in a very religious family, and if people only knew the things that was going on behind those closed doors, they wouldn't have thought very much of us on the outside. Um, and like I said, not that horrible, but it was just the truth. And so, is it better? I mean, your parent because she didn't know God? Not necessarily, because I still know some parents that wasn't necessarily religious, didn't go to church or take their kids or even allow their kids to go to church. And I still, they're still able to produce just as good as a person or just as good as a child. But one of the things that I really wanted to kind of, in a sense, and again, I won't be here very long to kind of close into on tonight is the behaviors. Um, because what you don't realize is when you haven't healed from that stuff, like how it really shows up, how it looks. And so for me, I was angry, very angry, fight, ready to fight. God is still dealing with my anger, because, and it manifested in different ways. Um, in my parenting, I have to ask my daughter, and she gonna actually be joining me later when she ain't scared no more. Because she said she wanted to be a part of some of the things, and she's a psychology major, so that's a whole nother thing. Because she has a lot she goes in, but we decided that we will do that later because it'll allow some of the millennials to be able to get some questions answered, and like see us, have conversations or hard conversations and give everybody a different perspective of what that looks like. And hopefully one day we can get my mom here. She don't like being on camera, but my ultimate goal is to, now that we are 5 years later and on a place of healing, to see what it looks like to have 3 generations of women who were all raised dysfunctionally, all molested, what it can look like to, you know, to move forward and be functional. And actually, me and my mom, actually one of our molesters was the same uncle. So these, we're talking about generational things that we've witnessed. So we're all happy that we're at this place now. But like I said, I want y'all to know the journey and the details, because it was very, very, very ugly before it got good. It was very toxic. It was not talking. It was sabotaging each other. Like, I promise you, when I get through this story, y'all be like, oh, yeah, it was really bad. And an enemy was all over everywhere, but God. But I wanted to. I think one of the things that I think hurts me sometimes is I feel like when I meet different women, I can always tell, when that wound is there because of how those behaviors, tend to come out. And like I said, my anger, it came out through fighting. And even in my first marriage, I would fight my husband. Like, it was just like, nobody's gonna ever violate me anymore. Nobody's gonna ever abandon me anymore. Like, I was just like, just raggedy, just good and raggedy, and hoeing, just doing everything. But when I started to go to therapy and work on my anger and really see that all of these things was stemming from these same, the same, hurt and the same wound, because your mother is the first person that teaches you. That's your first teacher. And so imagine not having a teacher, or some of you can, like, whatever you learn. So guess what? If they're toxic, they'll teach you how to be toxic through their actions. If they're narcissistic, they'll teach you that. If they're judgmental, if they're mean, if they're fearful, they'll teach you that. So one of the things I do want to say to those on here that are listening to me, if you indeed did have a mother like that, then you need to be on the watch and the lookout for those characteristics in yourself. Because if she taught you how to be who she was for 18 years, those things are still on the inside of you, and they may just be manifesting differently. They may be a little bit prettier, a little bit more softer spoken, but it's all still there. Um, One of the things that, oh, That's one of the things God said to me, because it wasn't necessarily my issue, because I have several female friends from all different, like, I got groups of friends that I have to hang with in different groups because they were like, "Why you hang with her? You just get along with strays. You can talk to anybody." And it's just like I just because I understand a lot of people are acting out from something that they went through a lot of times, a parental wound. I don't know. I just try to be understanding in whatever setting that I'm in, but like I said, I have groups of friends who don't like each other, don't like to be in the same, and that's cool because I can understand that, you know, it's cool. Like, look, I got two different friends that both of them individually, I had to go see them by themselves. They don't like nobody, but again, I know the story, so like I guess I'm just able to have compassion and just meet them at a place of understanding, but one of the things that God said to me right before I was getting ready to do this, and He was just like, tell them that the real reason why most of them don't like women, because you know how you hear women like, "Oh, I don't do women, I don't do women," and every time I used to hear that statement, it used to break my heart. Like, what do you mean you are a woman? Like, that should be the closest relationship you have, you know. And but I don't do women, and what He said to me, he said the reason why majority of them don't do women, it's because the first woman, their mother, they were not able to trust. So the reality is, it's not that you don't do women, you can't trust women. You didn't trust your mama. And so now your view of every woman is, I mean, and who wouldn't? If I can't trust her when I tell her something not to tell anybody, I can't trust her to not gossip or do this, then naturally most of and I would ask you guys to explore that, especially if you are one of those women who says, I don't do women, that's why I don't do women. I can almost guarantee you it's because it's your mother. That was the first woman that you didn't like, you couldn't trust, you couldn't respect, and so now that's your perception of most of the women, in your life. I've seen it show up in insecurities and how you deal with people. Other women, I definitely do hate to see it like that, because I'm like, with competition and comparison, or like, for some of y'all who had narcissistic parents that were bullies, it's just like the mean girl that just grows old. Like, what do you do? Or like, girl, can you please go to the nearest altar and heal? Because you mad every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the weekend. Like, but again, a lot of people don't realize how those things are still affecting them. So again, I just want to put a few things out there, give you just some general things that, like, I want to share. I will be reading some things from my book. I'll be getting some inserts out of there. It got a little personal. I was trying to read my own book the other night, and I was like, "Ooh, who did this to her?" Like, I actually started feeling sorry for the little girl all over again. So I just want to be here. Honestly, my goal with this channel is really to encourage, um, to be for someone what I wish I had at that time, to really help people understand, um, you know, those challenges. And of course, I do, online coaching as well, and I do sessions, which I've been doing the last couple weeks, and it's been really stressful. Where I've been bringing the moms and the daughters together to do sessions, and it's been interesting, but I know that it's the avenue that God kind of wants, because it allows me to be the neutral person but firm person in the middle, to help both people hear each other. And sometimes, even, I mean, I am a mom, even sometimes as moms, it's hard to hear the things about ourselves that we thought we did good, and our kids like, no, you wasn't that, you was this, or you was too strict, or you was that. So I need even my own conversations with my daughters. There have been times when we've had our serious conversations in the past where she'd be like, okay, mom, you was really hard on me in school. And I'm just like, you know what? And I had to repent. I had to apologize and be like, you know what? I had been through so much incest and molestation, and I was so depressed in my mind. Crazily, I was just like, okay, what if I die, if something happened to me, I need to make sure she's on the right path, she's on this. So it was just like, again, all of those things. I was parenting from a place of fear, from a place of being hurt, just from a place of mother wounds. So um again, I've working with which a particular case right now that has been really, really sad for me, um, because probably like her, with some of you, I'm dealing with a mother who refuses to take zero accountability for anything. And so it's just been difficult. And I have people inbox me all the time, how do I forgive her? But she did this to me and whatever. And it's just like, listen, we're going to work through this. We're going to walk through this. But I promise you, you do got to forgive her, because what I truly believe at the end of the day, that especially for my generation, I really believe that God has even called some of us that we're going to actually have to be the ones that save them. So it's kind of like this vision that God had given me. And it was just basically like we're almost like, I don't know if I want to call it a midwife or whatever, like a middle person that's just like, listen, you're going to have to help your mama be birthed to the next place, and you're going to have to help your daughter. So it's kind of like God is saying that our generation has a responsibility that's a little bit different, and we're going to have to care about people more than we say. I remember God stopped me about 2 years ago and said, don't you say no more that you don't like people, because I can't do anything with you if you can't do anything with people. So I stopped saying that real quick, which is why I'm here, because I'm done being disobedient. When God tells you to do something, to say something, I don't know how important this message is going to be to anybody. I just know that God said do it, so I'm going to be obedient. And I figured, because like I said, when he tells you to do something and you don't, and then things start falling apart, you're like, God, I don't understand. God, why you can't do this? Why you can't do that? And he's just like, didn't I tell you to go feed my sheep? Because you keep saying you love me. So go feed my sheep. Go tell them how I brought you out. Go tell them how I delivered you and your mom. Go tell them, the bond now. Go tell them the dirt too. Go tell them the things that you went through, and and so that they can be open about it and understand that it can be done. And there is hope in you restoring a relationship, with your mother who, for whatever reason, could have had some issues. So again, thank y'all, because I think I'm through for right now. I don't feel like he's giving me anything to say at the moment. But again, I'll say be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Again, I'll be back with some more information, and again, just sharing my own my personality, but my own personal story, so that you guys know that it is okay. And I want to, especially for the women that are in like that 35 to about 55 range, we definitely have a lot of work to do, and we definitely experience a lot of things that we are now dealing with as a result of not dealing with, those wounds. It's okay to talk to somebody about being honest about, look, she don't like me. She was jealous of me. She was always jealous of me. She always did this. She always made me pay everything. She always made me struggle. Like, again, I have countless stories of people. Like I said, I have my own personal wounds, but just countless situations of people that have had these, encounters. And I'll tell them, like, especially the ones where I've had sessions with the mothers, and I'm just like, baby, she don't like you. Receive it. And maybe she didn't know better. I encourage people to try to get to know their mom's stories, because sometimes that helps. But I do want to encourage those who have what I call impossible mothers. And I say that because, of course, we know everything, nothing is impossible with God, but we also know that everybody has free will. And some people have decided not to engage with God. Some mothers have decided, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna be right. I'm taking this to my grave, whatever the case may be. And in those cases, again, just like I said before, you just have to forgive them, and you have to, go on trying to be the best mother. But if nothing else, the best thing that you can do once you forgive is just try to be an example in the areas that you can be, and try to and to always pray. Because for me, during that process, people were like, you was praying for them when they wasn't talking to you. And I was like, yeah, because that's what God told me to do. That's still my mom. And I knew that people were poisoning her. I knew that she hadn't even read my book, but I know that people were poisoning her. And it was the enemy. Let me just say this. I know it was through people, but it was the enemy poisoning her and telling her things that was not even true to make her feel bad and all of that. And so, like I said, that was kind of how our situation started. But I've been dealing with some situations here lately that I ain't gonna lie. I probably would have swung on my mom with some of these situations I've heard. So I just thank God that anytime you think that your story is bad, there is always something worse. I mean, like literally, like I said, I've literally had biological mothers raping their daughters, stepmothers raping their daughters, mothers pimping out their daughters to pimps for money. Like, I've heard it all. I've experienced it all, and I've had a chance. God has blessed, my coaching business for me to start, like I said, being able to do a little bit more. But again, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to come out here, because if you feel like this is too much, too public for you, whatever the case may be, and you want to do a session with me, I'm fine with that. If you just want to come to YouTube and only hear when I do inserts, I'm fine with that too. Again, I'm here for obedience, and I'm here to help someone get past their mother wounds and on the journey to healing. So thank y'all for coming down here to these YouTube streets to talk to me, and there will be more content uploaded to come. Y'all be blessed and stay safe out there in those streets. Goodbye.